Hello and welcome to the Womxn Show. I'm Lenina Rassool, and today we are going to be speaking about a healing journey after gender-based violence. Now, I am very excited to invite into studio again Mumtaz Mahal Suliman, who is the author of the book, I'm Not Your Fucking Mop. And I'm sorry if that sounds shocking, but that is the actual title. We had Mumtaz on the show a year ago after the book was published to speak about what the reaction to the book has been and also what her healing journey was like afterwards. It's now 2 years since the book was published and we're going to be chatting to her. But before we do that, we are going to have a look at a short video from our last episode to give us more context about the book and about Mumtaz herself. Let's have a look.
And I need to commend you for being brave enough to use the title.
Yes, the title, which is quite controversial, especially since you are from a traditionally Muslim background, very conservative. So it was interesting. It made me think for a little while. So can you tell us a little bit about the title and also about the book?
Okay, when we come to the mop, generally when there's any mess in the house, you're either picking the broom up or you're picking the mop up. And I think as an abused person, if you've gone through life going through not feeling good enough, you eventually start feeling like the mop, that people are only picking you up when they need you or just when they need to use you. So when you've reached this point of complete zero and really nothing, like you've had enough, you can stand up. I think that's the point I felt. I'm not a fucking mop. That's it. It's enough. I need to take my power back. I need deservability. I need to take my power back. And if I don't teach people how to treat me, they're always going to treat me like that fucking mop. Okay, I got married at 19. I'd been courting my partner for 4 years prior, so I was just 14, between 14 and 15. Still a little girl, first love, married the man. It was beautiful. We had a stunning relationship. However, from the day that I'd got married, I wasn't the choice of bride. And obviously, you know, when you get married that young, you have financial pressures and you have so many other issues. Before you know it, you have a baby that's on its way and you have more financial pressures and more pressures. And I was just a teacher. I was earning peanuts. When you get married in our community, you don't marry a person. You marry the whole fabulous family. And the family cannot be so forgiving. They're very unforgiving. So your tiniest mistakes are reported to the husband. So obviously his frustration, you become the punching bag. So I'd gone through years like that, 15 years. The turning point was when my little girl, who's now 20, I'd had 3 children by then. They were getting affected at school.
That was a short clip from a previous episode when we spoke to Mumtaz Mahal Suliman. We are going to take a short break, but we'll be back with more after this. Welcome back. You're still watching The Womxn Show, and I am so excited to be back in studio with Mumtaz Mahal Suliman, who is the author of the book with the controversial title, I'm Not Your Fucking Mop. Now, as you remember from before the break, we said Mumtaz wrote this book detailing her relationship in terms of domestic violence and also the healing journey that came after it. So Mumtaz, we had a bit of a look at the last show before the break, but I wanted to ask you to give us a recap again. You know, what is the book about and also what led you to write it?
Okay, I was a victim of GBV prior to that, child molestation. And over the years, you know, you feel not good enough because you've attracted the GBV, the child molestation. So you grow up feeling not good enough and you keep attracting things to make you feel more not good enough until a day arises and you say, this is it, I have a choice to make, I have to take my power back. And more than 15 years ago, I had done that. I'd taken my power back and I'd gone on this healing journey and done several modalities. So I used different coaches and also studied some of the modalities myself so that I could help others. Because remember, if you do not experience pain yourself, then you cannot teach others how to heal from that kind of pain. So I understood that I wasn't a victim and I needed to grow from the painful experiences that I had attracted. And so my journey had began 15 years ago, and it wasn't one magic pill that just helped me heal overnight. It was over 15 years, and I cannot tell you that healing does not attract more challenges. The difference is you have a toolkit, and you don't stay stuck there for days and months and years. The most is 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or a day. Pick up something and get back on the road. Get up, get dressed, and show up. Now remember, when I wrote in my book, I stressed that emotions cause dis-ease. And so with all my negative emotions, I was bordering 80 kilograms. So over the years, using my various tools, my goals were, before I turn 50, I'm going to be a certain weight, I'm going to have certain body goals, mind, spirit goals. And I turned 50 a month ago. And I have to tell you that I've ticked all those boxes. I'm free. And so the whole story behind this was not telling you, was not focusing on the victim mode and on the perpetrators, but it's really shifting to love and forgiveness. Because when you shift to love and forgiveness, you're really giving yourself so much power to free yourself from a self-righteous prison that you sit in daily. I mean, let's face it, if you're in a space of unforgiveness, you go to bed every night replaying that old movie over and over again, and you're doing no good for yourself. So you have to make choices that, you know what, I'm waking up today, and these are the things that serve me, and these are the things that deserve me, and this is my plan of action to be able to arrive at the end goal. And I promise you, it's so liberating. Freedom, joy, love, peace is liberating.
I love that. I love that. And also when you speak about liberating and you speak about freedom, because really, you know, we want to be free from those things that are keeping us sort of down. I want to come back to something you said, because you were speaking about healing being this journey. It's not sort of a cure-all, but it helps you to, I'm assuming, process the emotions faster. So you didn't say, it's not that I don't have bad days, it's that when I do have my bad days, I have a set of tools that now help me to sort of minimize the impact of that.
Absolutely.
Is that what you meant?
Absolutely, absolutely. So if I'm, I mean, look, COVID set in at the time that I had published the book. So I had that challenge to deal with. I mean, if you read my story, I've had challenges with my children. Every day you wake up, there's going to be some challenge that you face. However, you have to be that role model for your children, because remember, the mother is the light of the home. If mother's unhappy, nobody's happy. So you need to wake up with that decision that I'm doing this for my children so that they know when they are parents, this is how they need to conduct their lives. We cannot sit in that self-righteous prison of non-forgiveness and blame the whole world, because guess what? Everybody has a story, and your story is no different from somebody else. Somebody is going through something, but the fact that you can speak about it and you can sit here and say, listen guys, I've put this in a book and I walk my talk, because if you've watched me, a year ago you interviewed me, I'm 13 kilos lighter than I was a year ago, which means I'm continuously working on myself and working on my work. It's just not talk and not blowing hot air and saying, guys, you need to visit a coach and this is what you need to do. The real homework starts with what you've learned from your coach, and you take it back home and you say, okay, I've learned 5 tools or 10 tools. I'm only going to focus on one for this year. I mean, make your goals measurable. You know, don't give yourself a time limit. Say, I'm going to give it a year or 2 years to actually reach where I need to with one particular thing. So it's not inundating for you. I mean, so many people find exercise so difficult. How do I get up? How do I get?
I'm one of them.
It's tough. It's tough. Trust me, I'm doing this for so many years and I still have to talk to myself. I still have to get out of that bed and make sure that I get to the gym and do what I need to be. I don't have a supermodel's body. I don't want that. I also don't care about the validation of others. You know, Lenina, that's another thing that keeps us stuck. We worry too much about what others think and how others are going to judge me. We put so much of value there that we start to lose ourselves in that process. Instagram, social media, we're just putting so much of value. We want to look like the illusory person that we see on there. And trust me, it is not true. When people see me and they say, wow, Taz, you've lost so much and looking so good, share me your secrets. I feel good. I still have stretch marks, a crap load of them. I have my hysterectomy scars. I have sagging boobs because I'm 50. I wear the right bras. I look after myself. And if somebody else doesn't like it, tough luck. I'm good enough for me. I'm good enough for my man and for my children and my siblings. That is enough. What others think does not add value to our lives. You know, nobody comes to you and says, here's 10K a month, Lenina. Take care of your family. You've got to get up and do what makes you feel good. So they're still going to gossip and they're still going to talk, but you continue with your routine, with the goals that you've set for your day or your month or your year.
So Mumtaz, I want to ask you, you spoke earlier about modalities, and I wanted to ask, you know, what does modalities mean? Is it like, you know, is that, I guess, a theme or a type of coaching or therapy or the tools? Just because we like to simplify. And the other thing is, on the topic of exercise, so I've always been fascinated by there's an emphasis on weight loss as opposed to health, and particularly mental health, right? Exercise is a really good tool for mental health, no matter how you wake up and you can't get moving after you've done just a 10-minute walk, you really feel better, regardless of how hard it was. And so is that one of the modalities or tools that you use for confidence and mental health and sort of those sorts of things, as opposed to just, not just, obviously losing the weight is also making you healthy, and so it makes you feel better. And I think there's an emphasis on how do we get to a point where we start really feeling better?
Exercise for me is one of the most powerful tools that I use. Exercise, prayer, meditation, most powerful tools. And then it's your gratitude and forgiveness. It's just 5 things in my toolbox that I use every single day. So like you say, when you take that walk for 10 minutes, our bodies are made of energy. Let's say if your eyes are closed and somebody's standing near you, you can actually feel that there's somebody there. It's because it's energetic fields that are crossing each other. So when you do the walk or you do any kind of exercise, you're releasing some kind of negative energy. You get head clarity, you feel better. And the moment you start feeling better, your thoughts create your future. And that's how you reach your goal weight of losing your weight or making better, healthier choices. I mean, if you go to a restaurant, you know now, I've exercised today, am I going to have the greasy burger or the salad? You tend to make the healthier option.
And because you also know that that's actually going to make you feel better, because you're feeding your body something that it needs, as opposed to something that's actually going to make you feel heavier and
it's
all
like
of that
people.
afterwards.
So it's body, mind, and spirit, releasing all the toxins in all 3 departments. People who don't serve you, let them go. Food that doesn't serve you, let it go. Activities that don't serve you, let it go.
So Mumtaz, I wanted to ask, it's been 2 years since you published the book and 1 year since I interviewed you the last time. And I remember because you've sworn in the title, right? There's a swear word, and we spoke the last time about how controversial that's been, how controversial it's been in the Muslim community, and what the responses to the book have been. And so 2 years later, I wanted to also come in. So you've written this story. We know one of the reasons is to shed a light on domestic violence also, and gender-based violence. And you recorded that quite candidly in the book. And that resonates with a lot of women who are not able to tell their own stories out of shame or embarrassment or fear. What is the response, 2 years later, what has the response been to the book?
Personally, I think there's been a phenomenal response. I think as much as my communities or people would not like to admit it, I do believe that this book was the catalyst to get the ball rolling, because it's like in 2 years, things have just sped up. If you look on social media, young girls, young women, they're coming out with their stories, they're feeling bolder. So I believe that me writing this and coming out with it has made that kind of a significant impact, because people feel this is somebody we know from our community, and she wasn't afraid. I mean, she's just bared it all, and they've watched me. They are watching me, and they are seeing that I'm moving, I'm growing, and I'm glowing. So we want to be there. So I believe it's made a very big difference in my communities, as much as they don't want to admit it. I know it is.
Have there been people who were surprised by the story? Because we hide abuse very well also, and all of a sudden, here you are. There must have been people who've known you throughout those years who didn't know what was going on. Was there surprise that you had actually lived through that and the extent of it? Because the extent of it was quite hectic, right?
Yeah. So yeah, there has been, I can't say all of it was negative. I mean, I've had lots of positive feedback where people have said, we thought we knew you. We know you better now. And thank you for sharing your story with us. So yeah, there's been positive feedback as well. And I mean, a week ago, she's just arrived in Dubai. That was a big thing for me, because Dubai is very conservative. And they requested the book a year ago, but I had challenges getting it there, but finally she's made it there as well.
Oh, wow.
Look, when I wrote the book, it was never to be a bestseller or to call myself an author. It was just a story that I meant to share, to free myself and to help others start making better choices to free themselves. And not just women, because there are men that are also in these conditions.
Yeah. Yeah, no, of course. And then also, you know, what was so interesting about, okay, before I ask that question, I also wanted to ask, has there been backlash to the book? And I know we spoke about this as well before, but as we are going through what seems to be a wave of women sharing their stories, coming out, you know, being very bold, there is still backlash to women telling the truth, to sharing their stories, to speaking about these violent things, speaking about these things that are sort of family matters and should be kept in the home. And so what I often like to ask on the show is, has there been backlash? And if there has, you know, has there been backlash from families or communities or friends? Because that's often the backlash that also hurts the most, right?
There has been, you know, people don't like truth. So as long as you're speaking the truth, you're going to get communities or fragments of people that are going to challenge you and say, everybody goes through this. Is it necessary for you to open up a can of worms or open up Pandora's box? And I always reply, does it make it right? If everybody's going through it, does it make it right? At some point, somebody's got to break this generational curse. And so if I'm doing that for my family unit, then hallelujah to me. And let's hope that it's going to be like dominoes effect. My neighbor watches it, and she implements it in her home. And so then I am changing vibrations as one individual in my community, in my town, in my country, in the world. So as much as you think that you're one insignificant person with one insignificant story, it's not you making an effect. You've made an effect.
I mean, I love that, and I love that sort of domino effect, and that is what we hope for. And then, you know, when we spoke last year, the interesting thing was that you didn't divorce your husband, right? You took a sabbatical. You guys, you know, went through a process to sort of work through and change, move away from violent behavior, which is like how I like to say it. But also then ask,
shifting.
You know, yes, shifting. Yeah. And so to follow on from that question also, but you do speak about him, obviously. He was the perpetrator of that violence, and you have children. And so I guess one of the reasons a lot of people are afraid to sort of write their stories is also the effect of writing that truth on other people. So one is the backlash, but also the exposure of other people's behavior.
Yes.
And so what has been, I think, you know, in your family, your immediate family, but maybe also extended, maybe also your in-laws and so forth, if you feel comfortable saying, like, and your children, have they gotten responses to the fact that this happened within their family?
You know, I have such an amazing family. I have to tell you, I mean, I have the support of my goddessa here as well. If she wasn't here, my kids would have been here. They've supported me through every milestone of the journey and the release of the book. My grandson is turning 9, and if you ask him, he says his hero is Taz. I'm my husband's hero, my children's hero, my grandchild, my friends, my siblings. So I think it's had a very positive impact, because if you ask any of them, they say, wow, you know, when I grow up, I want to be Taz. Because she's unafraid. She speaks her mind. And let me tell you, I've spoken about my husband being the perpetrator. And I always share the story. You get Peter and you get Judas. Peter has a bad day, and Judas has a bad heart. I was fortunate that on his bad days, he watched me shift, and he chose to shift. And he is an amazing, amazing partner. If I look at where he was and where he is, and if I had to relive my life and make choices, I would choose this very life again, because we both evolved. We both grew. And he supports me every step of the way. I would like people to hear his story. He's actually very shy, but I would like people to hear his story also someday.
And I think it's an important story. And I was just going to say, we need to get him on, because, you know, one of the shows that we've done here before was when we had the organization Mosaic on. And they actually, one of the things we started with is trying to move away from the term perpetrator and start to speak about violence as a behavior, as a behavior that people use to cope with something. We see children, right? Children have tantrums when they can't get what they want, and they don't necessarily mean to be violent. It's just a way for them to sort of get the attention or work through something. And, you know, what came out often is that men have not learned, men primarily within the domestic violence context, have not learned another way to process the emotions or to get their points across. And so there's a shift into violent behavior. And so we'd love to have him on and to come and tell us about that shift. And I'm glad that you mentioned it. When I started the show, one of the first guests I had on were women who do court support work. And they spoke about, I asked them, you know, what is a tipping point? What is a tipping point for women to leave? And I'll never forget, they said, well, women don't want to divorce their husbands or see them in jail. They just want the violence to stop. And so I guess I want to ask you, you represent a possibility of that, right? And if you could, you know, before we go to break, if you could say something around that, you know, I guess, is it possible? Is it an option? We don't often think. All we say to women who are abused is, you must leave.
Yeah. It's easier to say you must leave, but remember, this woman has spent her entire life with this partner. This is all she knows. So it becomes more of a comfort zone. In some cases, she needs to leave because there's no hope, there's no change, there's no chance that he is going to correct his behavior.
Mumtaz, actually, do you know what? I asked that question just as we have to go to break. So we're going to hold that. You know, what are the other options? We're always telling women that they need to leave, but are there other alternatives? We are going to take a short break, and we're going to answer that question when we come back. Welcome back. You're still watching The Womxn Show, and we are in studio with Mumtaz Mahal Suliman, who is the author of the book, I'm Not a Fucking Mop. And we had Mumtaz on last year. We were speaking about the book, and we're speaking about gender-based violence, and it's now 2 years since the book's been published, and we've brought you back on to come and just, you know, speak about healing, essentially. But Mumtaz, before the break, I'd asked a question, and the question was around the fact that you had stayed with your husband. Now, for context, I specifically remember you took a sabbatical. So you left for the year, but you didn't divorce him. And then you went on a healing journey, and he sort of not directly alongside you, but he also shifted as you were healing. He also healed and moved away, shifted away from using violent behavior. And so I'd asked a question about, usually the narrative is, and the narrative in mainstream media, the narrative even I think from us is we say, oh, you need to leave this man, and you did something different. And so we were asking you about sort of context around that difference, and I guess in alternative messaging for women.
So it's very important for you to, as a victim of the circumstance, to remove yourself so that you teach the perpetrator accountability. Because if you do not remove yourself, that person's never going to have accountability. And the sad part is narcissistic behavior is a disease. So you may not be able to change the narcissist. You spoke about behavioral patterns, but with the narcissist it's very, very difficult. They are adamant that they are right, and they vilify the true victim. So they really make the true victim look like the bully. So it's really, in essence, you have to take charge of your life and say, I'm removing myself, I'm going on this journey. You're either on the ship with me or you're off. You've got to be very clear about who you are, what you want, and where you're going. And then he has a decision to make, whether he's going to be changing for himself. He needs to understand that during this process, you both will be growing. And at the end of it, you may not want to be with him. And whoever else he decides that he's going to be with, he needs to be a decent human being. Because that's what it's all about. It's about being decent.
Can I ask you a question? And so, you know, he's your husband, and as we said, we must get him on to come and tell his story about his healing journey. But I had a friend message me the other day. Her daughter was doing an assignment about gender-based violence. And it was very interesting because one of the questions that were asked is, what is the psychological impact of violence on the perpetrator who used the violence? And had that effect, I mean, you guys must have had conversations, had the fact that he had used violence once he realized it and the extent of it, and I mean, if he's read your book, seeing it from your perspective, from the receiver of the violence perspective, you know, what impact did that have on him?
I think he realized, and the fact that we raised our children in such a beautiful manner that they respect him as much as they respect me, jolted his realization even further. So he realized, and you know what, there's not a day that goes by when he doesn't try to do better and be better. And that's the important part that we all need to focus on. You know, at the end of the day, we're just all spirit, and we need to shift to compassion, complete compassion. It's not that I'm right and you're wrong. It's never about who's right and wrong. Nobody's in a competition. It's really shifting to compassion. So even though I was on my journey, I needed to understand that he probably had a background that with his triggers, and that's why hurt people hurt others. So really, I think it's important for two of you to grow together and shape yourself together. And if one is not willing to do that, you've got to let him go. It's very difficult. Women don't do that because they're so afraid. What will the people say? Where will I go? What will I do? I have children. Trust me, when you're making this decision, you need to let your parents go, your siblings, your partner, everybody around you. It's about you. Because if your cup is not filled, you cannot fill the cups of others. How else can you make a significant difference in your home, in humanity, if you do not take care of yourself? You need to do that.
Yeah. I want to ask you about the healing journey then, and as we spoke about the modalities and some of the tools. And so you found yourself in the situation, you found yourself choosing yourself, you know, leaving the abusive situation, leaving the violence behind to go and start filling your cup up. And often at this juncture, there's also a lot of now we've acknowledged that the situation was so bad, but there's often, you know, a lot of depression that comes along with it, a lot of victimhood that comes along with it, which I'm not saying also, you know, you were a victim. It's about acknowledging that. How did you manage to sort of shift yourself through, I think, the negative feelings, to do things through the negative feelings?
You can't just do it yourself. You need a coach. Your first point of entry is finding a coach. And there are so many. I don't care which one you use, because every coach, it's like making a cake. The end result is the same. The method, the ingredients are the same. The method may differ. Find yourself a coach and use them for at least a month, 2 months, 3 months at maximum. You don't need it for the rest of your life. And then from there, what you searches you, finds you. So you continuously on this road, on this healing journey, you're going to find different coaches. So my first point of entry was a Heal Your Life coach based on Louise Hay's philosophies, Ashika Singh. And then from there, I studied Reiki, I did Afya healing, anything to do with healing. I was hungry. I needed to know, understand. And if you look at the larger picture, you really went through all these things to prepare you for something so big ahead of you. So now every challenge that does come, I still feel it. That is why you have a peace corner, not a naughty corner, a peace corner.
I love that.
So you go into your peace corner, you would spend 15 minutes, 30 minutes, as much as you need there to feel your feelings, because we have been programmed to not show our feelings and not feel our feelings. But you go onto your prayer mat or you do your meditation, cry. I feel sad because, I feel angry because. Let it go there. So instead of looking at the person and babbling the whole alphabet, and one thing escalates to another and it really gets larger than it should have been, go to your peace corner. Do whatever you need to do there. Ground yourself. So when you re-emerge in your lounge or in your kitchen or facing somebody else, you're feeling far more grounded, and you do not have to start a screaming match.
I see. And so it's really interesting that you say feeling your feelings also, because that is one of the ways that we sort of avoid it, and not just, I think, not just sort of actively, but also covertly, through keeping busy, through doing, you know, whatever we can to sort of distract us from that.
You're burying it, and quite frankly, that becomes your saboteur. Those feelings that you're denying becomes your saboteur. So for example, if you're denying love and receiving love, you're always going to attract a partner that's going to treat you not good enough. You need to own it and say, I deserve love, I deserve abundance, I deserve peace. And so often we're so busy feeling that we don't have that deservability, and I'm not good enough. How can something so wonderful happen to me? So you've already sabotaged that.
So I want to ask a little bit about the coaching and sort of the tools, and you know, you mentioned some of the things like Reiki and meditation and stuff, and often these things feel so foreign to us. You know, we see them on TV. I think even sort of, and I'll speak from my own perspective, you know, when I started reading about it and stuff, it seemed so far removed from the life and the culture that I grew up with that it's almost silly, or it's not for me. And so can you just give us an idea of what does a life coach do, as opposed to a therapist or a psychologist maybe? What and do they also help you to work through feelings? Do they give you tools? Is it anything like a sports coach?
I should imagine it is exactly like a sports coach. So the difference between my personal opinion, between visiting a psychiatrist and visiting a life coach, the psychiatrist just listens to you, puts you on medication. I didn't want that. I didn't want more toxicity in my body. I did try the antidepressants, and I felt like I didn't know who I was. I was like stuck. I was in a prison in my own body. And I didn't want to be lame and lethargic. I wanted my voice to continue. I wanted to feel things. So that's why I chose the life coach. Exactly like your sports coach, you would share where you are, where you have been, and where you're going to. In my particular life coaching, we didn't want to open the past. We wanted it to stay where it was, open new doors, and grab new opportunities of love and peace and abundance and shut the doors to old habits and old pain and cyclical pain that just moves on from generation to generation. From my life coaching, I had goals. Remember, I bought it 80 kilograms. I wanted to lose weight because when you lose weight, you're losing like a whole person, a whole energy, and you feel good and you feel confident. So with the life coaching came affirmations. And you don't think that your affirmations are going to help you in any way. However, saying the same thing every day, you're reprogramming your thoughts and you're giving yourself new thoughts and a new lease on life. So I love my body, therefore I feed it with nourishing food and exercise in ways that are fun. Now remember when I started life coaching, I didn't know how to swim. I didn't know how to dance. I was 80 kilograms. I didn't exercise. I didn't eat healthy. And I said, by the time I turned 50, I gave myself a decent, measurable goal because I was 36 when I started. I had over 15 years. I started with the exercise. I don't miss a single day. I start with my morning prayer. I do not miss a single day. Now, people would look at me and judge and say, this Muslim girl, well, my connection with my Maker is personal, just like everybody else's is personal. This is the way I pray. And I believe that He loved me and He didn't forsake me, and He held my hand through my journey with my exercise, with my prayer, meditation, affirmations, gratitude, forgiveness. I work on these things every single day. I take 10 minutes of my time. I'll write a letter to whoever I need to forgive, and I let it go because forgiveness is really freeing yourself. Excuse me. I'm not going to say that there are days that are perfect. I do get days when I want to throw my toys out, and I do it. I give myself that. But at the end of the day, I am free. I live life on my terms and what makes me feel good. And when people ask me, but how can you be so free, Taz? I want to be like you. And I say, there's nothing stopping you. There's really nothing besides fear.
Mumtaz, I want to ask you about the importance of goals. And I think, you know, when you leave a situation, and I don't want to focus like on necessarily abusive situations, but I remember when I got divorced, for instance, I was like, and especially if you have kids, you just, your first goals is getting yourself economically stable again, right? Because the house disrupts depending on whether you were staying together, you need to get another job or a better job, or how are we going to just keep the roof over their head and feed? And I remember I was like, I'm going to give myself 1 year to get myself together, but there was no specific goal. It wasn't like this dream job or this dream weight or this dream house. It was just like a year to survive. That's what I called it, a year of survival. And then sort of and I did it, and it was great. But the next year was interesting because it was rather empty. Okay, I survived the year. Like, now what? And so it's interesting that you mentioned goals and having something to work towards, because I think with the absence of something to work towards, that's when also depression can sit in and you think, oh, well, what's the point? Like, why am I doing this? Why am I still here? It's not going anywhere. I've had this bad thing happen to me, and now, you know, I'm stable, but then what? And so can you just speak about how important it is to actually set a goal? Some people talk about vision boards. How important is it to chart the path and say, I don't just want to get away from this or survive this or whatever. I need to be moving towards something.
Vision boards are so powerful. Every single person I've sat with doing a vision board came to me a year later and said, thank you for helping me rewrite my new story. I am living it. So the power of ink is underestimated. When people tell me, I want this, I want that, you're always going to want it. Don't keep it in here. Ink it. There's some kind of power that goes in inking it down. So keep a journal and rewrite and revisit your goals every single day.
I did a quote once which I loved, which was like, words are like a magic spell. And I often think about that when I write things down. I then wanted to, so Mumtaz, I also wanted to ask, so we also spoke about, and often when I bring authors on, they speak about writing as part of healing. And I've done a whole show actually on writing as healing. And so this is just one part of the story, but did you also use it? Would you also suggest writing as a tool, whether it is journaling, whether it's somebody deciding to write their story? And how did that help you? Did the writing give you different perspectives? Was it part of sort of a practice or a tool to help you work through things?
Tool. Definitely. That's why I say that journaling and letter writing on forgiveness is so important, because it's cathartic. It's really letting things go. You know, it's when you find a friend and you speak to her, you feel a little better, try writing it and burning the letter and letting it go, and then writing and journaling your goals. There's power in writing, for sure, absolutely.
So, okay, we're almost at break time again, but I want to ask, you said recently, so you've turned 50, there's been a shift, you know, and I asked you to come back on because I follow you on social media too, and I've just been seeing the shift. And so what was interesting for me and what I wanted to ask you about was joy, because when I look at you now, I think which is even a shift from last year. There just seems to be an extra layer of radiance, an extra layer of joy, and I wanted to ask about, so what is that extra layer of joy? Because there's meeting a goal, and there's succeeding, and there's working hard. But what is this extra layer that people can sort of work towards?
I like that you mentioned this extra layer of joy, because that's what we've been talking about shifting lately with my sister and I. I can't tell you it's a place. I can't even tell you it's a feeling. When I find the word, I'll probably write a whole book on it.
We will wait for it, because and that was the thing though. You can reach the goal and sometimes not feel better.
And not feel better. And like I say, if I go back to the beginning of this conversation, it's our search for validation that robs us of joy. It's our search for fitting in and acceptance that robs us of joy. Let it go. Anything that takes your joy away and takes your level of comfort away, let it go. I've shifted in the sense that I don't need to have a large table. Your circle becomes so small, you've probably heard that now, it's a dot. That is enough, because that's where your joy lies, in that dot. That is enough.
I love that. Okay, we need to take a short break, but we'll be back with more after this. Welcome back. You're still watching The Womxn Show, and we've been having a wonderful conversation with Mumtaz Mahal Suliman, who is the author of I'm Not Your Fucking Mop. I don't think that I've said that word so many times on TV before. Mumtaz, we've been speaking about healing, we've been speaking about your experiences, about the book, and I wanted to come in and sort of end of the show with some practical applications of tools. You know, we spoke about quite a lot of modalities and strategies. You've explored things like Reiki and had a life coach, but we also know that's not accessible to everyone. That's not accessible in the area. It might not be accessible because of cost. And so, you know, I wanted to speak to women and people out there, if they're sitting and they want to start to make a shift, you know, what are small practical ways that they can sort of get the ball rolling?
I would advise, cost is always an issue. It's something I've been fighting with for so long. I do run workshops where I never have any costs attached to it. I say, if you're coming, if I can, if the group is small, I supply you with your tea and coffee. But if I'm taking you to a restaurant, I can't afford to feed everybody there. Buy your own tea, coffee, and drink. But the work that I'm going to be, the workshop I'm going to be sharing with you, I'm not charging. People like pain. People like complaining, I have found. Because when I advertise these workshops, I'm lucky if I get 3 to 5 people attending. So I'm putting it out there again, that I'm willing to offer my services to any of the schools or institutions that want to make use of it and be able to empower their women and men and children. Call me. All you do is have your own tea and coffee and give me some too. However, I also challenge other coaches who are willing to go on board with me with this and offer their services, because there are many people that want change and that cannot afford it. I was one of them when I started 15 years ago. Trust me, I gave myself a birthday gift in August. I collected my money, and then I made an arrangement deal with my coach to say, I don't have all the money, but I will be paying you off in installments. And so I don't want any other woman to feel, I can't afford this. And let that be the only excuse for healing. So when you do see these workshops being advertised, I think social media is the best place to see. Find somebody that you like, follow them and see what they have advertised. And if you want to really go for it and you can't afford it, get in touch with me and my crew. We will make an effort to get you on board to somebody who's charging you. And if you want, you can come for some of ours, and I promise you, you won't look back.
And so, I mean, thank you. And that's really important, right? Because, I mean, mental health services are also a service. Yeah. And so we're not saying like people shouldn't charge for them, but we're saying like how can we make it more accessible? And I'll throw out, a statistic, only 5% of our budget actually goes towards mental health services in South Africa. So these things
are underrated.
It's underrated. So these things are so important. And then just from your perspective as someone who herself struggled with access in the beginning of your healing journey when you were around 36. What are some of the I think more easily accessible tools or ways that you started to sort of interrogate this, to heal, are there things people can just do at home?
With healing, prayer is free. All the tools that I teach are free. Prayer is free. Exercise is free. You don't have to go to a gym. You can run on the road. Make sure that you get 10,000 steps a day to maintain the weight that you want and the energy levels that you need. Nutrition is so easy. Just choose greens.
Yeah.
A little bit of protein. That can't be too difficult. Gratitude, forgiveness, and affirmation. Get a scrapbook, write in there. Write 3 things that you're grateful for every single day. Write 3 goals that you want to affirm as if it's in the present. Write a forgiveness letter to someone. That's free. And meditation is so free. Meditation is really silencing your mind. We talk too much. We think too much. Take 5 minutes every single day. Breathing is free. And that's how you meditate. You just breathe in and out. Simple.
I know so many people say, and I was one of them, it's like, I just don't get this meditation thing. I'm just sitting here. I'm going to share a trick that I learned now recently, actually. So in one of the many books I was reading, all of a sudden this extra layer or tip comes with the breathing. So they say, when you're feeling really overwhelmed, you breathe in, and as you breathe in, you say in, and as you breathe out, you say
Wonderful.
Out. And what it does is, like, it tricks your brain into control mode. So if you feel a bit out of control, you can be in traffic. When I'm in traffic and I'm just late and I just can't get there, I breathe in, and it feels like I have no control over the situation. Just saying in as I breathe in and saying out as I breathe out gives me a measure of regulation. So I'm sharing that because that was the only way.
It is so powerful.
That got me to meditate.
Powerful. And breathing is healing.
Yeah.
So your body is made of chakra points, energy centers. It's like, take a drain. If you open the water and there's a blockage in the drain, nothing's going to pass through. Your body is very much the same way. So I'm just going to share with you your main chakra points is your base, which is for grounding. If that one's not balanced, you're broken. Sacral, solar plexus, heart, throat, and forehead. If you can just spend 5 minutes every morning switching your hands on each point. Just do this exactly what I'm doing.
As you're breathing.
As you're breathing. So you've meditated and you're balancing your chakras, and I swear to you, it's already another layer of negativity that's gone. That's all you do. Do that, pray, thank God for something, and run on the road.
Now, I love that, and I'm going to end off because we have to finish soon, but I want to say there are many households, and I might have done this way back when I didn't know any better also, is if you sit in the lounge and you start breathing and sit quietly and sort of, touching your chakras, there might be an auntie or a mommy or a husband that come and it's like, what are you doing? Are you crazy? It's just breathing. This doesn't work. Ways that I found to manage that is you can do it anywhere. It's also free, right? Go into the toilet, you can go into the bathroom, you can go into your own room if you have one and close the door and just sit there, and it really does, I can vouch, it really just help to regulate the system. And so as a starting point, I think it's great. So you said exercise, nutrition, those are things you can do at home, prayer, gratitude, journal, writing down affirmations, writing down goals, and then just balancing meditation, breathing, saying in and out as you're doing it.
Absolutely. Just on the point of the coach, the only reason you would bring a coach in for all this is because sometimes people need accountability. We're lazy to do it ourselves.
Yeah, and so coach helps you to, I had a personal trainer for once in my life, just 3 months before I got married, and I got a package. So you had one personal training session, and then you could have access to like all of the classes. I only went to the personal training session once a week because there was somebody waiting for me on the other end.
Absolutely.
Couldn't do any of the other stuff. Couldn't get myself to go to any of the other stuff. But that's all we have today, Mumtaz. I want to say thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for coming and sharing your wisdom and sharing your healing journey and giving us some practical tools that we can take forward to heal ourselves. And I want to say thank you to everybody out there for joining us.
Thank you so much, Lenina. And you stay as beautiful and awesome every year I see you. You look better.
Thank you. So that is all we have for this evening. Thank you for joining us as we come to the end of our hour together. I'm Lenina Rassool. This is Mumtaz Mahal Suliman, and we are saying goodbye.